All right, I see the red dots. So let's get started. All right, so hello again. We're so happy to have you today. Again, this is our fourth webinar of the State Legislative Advocacy Training webinar series by Positive Women's Network USA. And today we're going to be going over state legislative organizing. And we're going to go over a lot of types of organizing, specifically grassroots, in-district, and digital. I'm gonna have Evany present herself first. Evany, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am Evany Turk, pronoun she, her, hers. I am the PWN National Field Organizer, and I am based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. It is great to be here with you all.
Awesome. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Breanna Diaz, and my pronouns are she and they, and I'm the policy director for PWN. And I am based in Richmond, Virginia, but I'm Dallas, Texas native. So like every time I hear Evany talk about Dallas, Texas, I'm like, ugh, I miss my home, but I'm glad Evany's holding it down. So we're your two lovely presenters today. And here are a couple things we're hoping to accomplish in this presentation with you all today. Our objectives are to learn about how organizing in your local community can shape policy. The two are deeply intertwined. You cannot accomplish policy goals without organizing. So we're going to learn how to do that. We're going to learn strategies for how to activate your local networks. We're going to learn strategies for in-district organizing, including hosting advocacy events, safe ones, because we are still in a pandemic. And we're also going to learn how to organize safely via digital organizing. We're all going to be professional organizers by the end of this webinar. But before we jump into all that organizing, I wanted to provide a brief background on who PWN is. I saw a lot of familiar names in the chat. It's so lovely to see all of our members, our supporters and state leads here today. And then there's some folks that I'm sure are pretty new to PWN. So quick backgrounder, we're the only national organization in the US led by and for women and people of trans experience living with HIV. PWN was founded in 2008 by 20 diverse women living with HIV, including women of trans experience. And today we have about 3,000 members nationwide in a lot of states. I know we have state leads in 12 and we have some chapters listed, but I'm sure there's even more members. And our mission is to prepare and involve women living with HIV in all our diversity, including gender identity and sexual orientation in all levels of policy and decision making. So, I also want to briefly go over the PWN Policy Agenda. In our first three presentations of the State Legislative Advocacy Training webinar series, we went over, why is state legislative advocacy so important? How do we do issue-based advocacy, and how do we message it, right? And, it's important at PWN, we recognize that in order to enact policies that directly impact women and people with trans experience living with HIV, we got to do the advocacy work and we got to mobilize. And so at PWN, we recognize that there are a lot of issues that impact, people living with HIV. And we have 6 that we have identified that we largely work on, but these 6 buckets are composed of multiple issues, right? We're not limited to just these 6. And what we have is universal health care, economic justice, ending criminalization, trans rights, safety and justice, ending violence against women living with HIV, and sexual and reproductive health rights and justice. We've identified these 6 issue areas as our priority areas, and we know the only way to enact policies that help our people and to defeat the bad policies that want to harm our people is to do this advocacy work and organizing work that we'll be learning more about today. If you would like to learn more about the policy agenda, I highly recommend you check out PWN's website to see what issues we're working on. So I know I alluded to this earlier, but We've learned a lot over the past, what has it been, like 5 months, even though it feels like a lot longer. 2020 and 2021 have felt pretty long, but we've learned a lot in like the 4 hours that we've been together. In our first webinar series, our webinar, we learned what is legislative advocacy at the state level. We learned what the legislative process is and why both are important, because we know that by engaging in legislative advocacy and understanding the legislative process, we're giving our community a voice. No one's going to advocate for us except for ourselves. And so it's essential that we understand the process and engage with it in order to enact legislation or policies that benefit us. We also learned in the second webinar, what is issue-based advocacy, right? That's like where we can pick a particular issue like HIV criminalization or universal health care or LGBTQ non-discrimination, right? Like these are things that we're seeing, voting rights, defunding police. These are all things happening in our states right now. And so issue-based advocacy is identifying one of those issues and advocating for it within your legislature. And we know that doing that type of advocacy on those type of issues requires certain frameworks or approaches to how we do that advocacy. And so in the second webinar, we went over two key frameworks. We went over a racial justice framework and a gender justice framework. And then finally, our last webinar that we did in January was all about messaging. Our comms director, Jenny Smith-Cameo, led that webinar. And there we learned how to message our issues for impact, right? We know that sometimes we come across really difficult political or politicized issues. And it's so important that we really understand and know how we want to talk about those issues, right? Like sharing your story, taking really negative or just horrible messaging and rhetoric around an issue that impacts us and switching, like flipping the script, right? We went over that. And today we're going to learn all about organizing, the fourth and probably the biggest piece in legislative advocacy work. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Evany.
Thank you. That didn't say enough of my face. Going on to the next slide. All right. So I am excited to talk about organizing. It's what I do all day, every day. Please, if you have questions during this presentation, drop them in the chat or use the Q&A box and we will make sure we get them answered. So why do we organize? We organize for many reasons. We organize to take action on something that's an issue that impacts our lives. We organize to support issues that impact our lives, but in general, we organize to make sure we're trying to live our best lives in the states that we live in, right? So we have legislative action here, which you guys have learned a lot about. We organize so we can either stop bad legislation or we can support good legislation. We want to make sure we protect the critical programs and policies that are important to our lives. Those policies that we just talked about, reproductive health care, trans rights and safety. A lot of times funding for HIV programming, we are organizing around that. Housing. Housing is a huge deal. And a lot of times we need to organize in order to take action in order to get housing, or help people understand that housing is important and housing is healthcare. We also organize to oppose harmful legislation. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of harmful legislation. There has been a lot of organizing. Sometimes organizing, of course, is local, sometimes it's statewide, sometimes it's federal. No matter what, if we are dealing with harmful legislation, we need to organize in order to stop it. I think some of you guys remember when we organized to stop the ACA from being repealed. I think some of you guys remember when we were trying to stop certain appointments on the Supreme Court from happening. It was huge, a lot of organizing. That was federal, but there was a lot of organizing going on there, and a lot of you guys helped. Organizing also helps you gain powerful allies. So relationship building. A lot of times we don't think about that, but in organizing, you do a lot of relationship building. And in order to organize, you need people. So you need to build those relationships. Next slide. So organizing in your district, meaning in your state, in where you live, organizing in district. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Community advocate benefits. Organizing in district allows you to engage local advocates in state and federal advocacy. So you identify an issue that's in your state, you gather your people, and you start making a decision on how to organize around it. Though that is a benefit of in-district organizing. It's an opportunity to engage people locally on an issue that impacts them. You don't have to travel outside of your state. That's another benefit to organizing in district. You get to talk to representatives in their local offices. You get to go ahead and meet with them when we were meeting face to face. It's a benefit of meeting with them in district. And people who rely on these programs and are affected by these issues are, of course, the strongest advocates. So benefits to a huge benefit to organizing in district is that the people who are the direct constituents of those legislators get to talk directly to them. That is a really important part of in district organizing because they listen to the people who voted them in. That's who they want to hear from. They don't want to hear from the other people. So that's one of the cool benefits and important in your organizing. You can go to the next slide, Breanna. What does in-district organizing offer? Face-to-face visits, as we just talked about, which is a very effective form of organizing and community building. A lot of times with in-district organizing and going to the office, even when you call on the phone a lot, one of the key things everybody should know is, yes, the legislator is important, but guess who is more important than them? Their staff. Their staff is the one that makes them do things. Their staff is the one that tells them what to do. Their staff is the boss of them. So it is always good to develop a relationship with their staff, because when you develop a relationship with their staff and you know them and you know they know you, a lot of times your issue can become priority because their staff gonna be like, this is what you need to pay attention to, this is what you need to do. And you can always get very effective tips for what's happening in your area. We live, our lives are we have multiple issues in our lives. We have different frames. So our legislators a lot of times are really good at helping with those issues. And people don't think about, call my legislator because I got this huge pothole outside of my door and it keeps busting my tire. People don't think to call their, local legislator and be like, can we do something about this? Or, something happening in the school. All areas of life, our legislators are important for. So yes, become friendly with their staff. It is key to effective advocacy and organizing. Small and dedicated groups have great influence. A lot of times people think they have to have all of these people, but you don't. You can have a very small, dedicated group of people who is informed on the issue, know what you're going in to say, and can get it across, and it can be very powerful. So don't ever think that you need a huge group of people to make change on the issue. In district organizing also helps. Organizing also helps you see the people at home. We said that, I said this on the last slide, but that's really important. It helps congressional office see you and your organization as credible and powerful and a helpful voice in the community for whatever you're advocating. When they see you at home in their offices, that is really important because they know you're paying attention to them, they know you're keeping up with them, and they know you're really there. So it is definitely a good thing to meet with them in person or let them know that you know that they're there. Next slide. So when do you start organizing? You start organizing immediately, whenever it is that you need to organize around a session or issue. Right now, most state legislatures are in session. So my advice is always to go ahead and contact your legislator. Email them, call their office, introduce yourself. I have everybody introducing themselves. I always tell people to send an email or make a call and introduce yourself so they'll know that you are interested in engaging. I also advise you guys to let them know about any issues that is pressing in your life right now. Anything that you think is need to happen. Voting issues, education issues, HIV budgets, all of those things. Let them know. Next slide. All right. So how do you find out who represents you? You can Google who represents me in your state legislature. So who represents me in Virginia legislature, and then they'll have you put in your address and things, and it'll tell you who your local representatives are. Of course, in order to organize, you need to know who your target is. Your target is going to be really important, and if it's your legislator, I can never say that word too many times. It's important for you to know that. So go ahead and do that. If you don't know who your legislator is, please find out. Please send them an email. Please introduce yourself. Tell them who you're with. If you're a PWN member, you can introduce yourself as that. If you work for an organization, a lot of times they'll even come to your organizations and visit because they want to know what's going on in their community. So go ahead and find out who they are, send an email, introduce yourself. That's the start of your organizing. Next slide. And then, if you have an issue that you want to organize around, of course, you have to have other people. You could recruit 3 or 4 people to join you and advocating on your issue. That's really important. And then research, make sure everybody's informed on the issues to help you. Group visits are really impactful. The experience builds relationships and skills among all. And people who are directly affected by the issue are the most powerful messengers. So recruit the people who are most passionate and directly affected by the issues if you can. And you don't always have to look for necessarily individuals. Sometimes you can look for individuals at organizations to represent organizations that is also impacted by the issue. So that's really important. Next slide. Recruit diverse populations and stakeholders. Absolutely. You want to make sure your group is as diverse as possible, because no one person can, speak for all people. So, of course, you want your populations to include women. And one of the things that people never think about is, in the population of women, you also want to think about women with and without children, because they have different experiences, right? Young people, people in the LGBTQI community, the Black, Indigenous, and communities of color community, heterosexual men. We always forget about them in the HIV community, but they there. Why we forget about them so much? Let's not forget about them. Let's include them. And then stakeholders include people living with HIV, service providers, public health experts, organizational leaders, and researchers. Just talked about that. Yep. So make sure you are recruiting from a diverse population. Next. Request your meeting. So you have recruited your people. You guys have talked about the issue. You guys are informed on the issue. You guys know exactly what you're going in to say. Now you need to request your meeting. You request your meeting by calling the district office, or you can complete the request meeting form that's on the website, or you can email the district staff. The meeting request should mention that you are a voting constituent, that the issue that you want to discuss, when you want to meet, the names and affiliations of the people attending the meeting, and you should always follow up with an email or phone call. If they don't respond to your request, you can alert the media and show up anyway. This picture is one of my faves. That is our training director, Barb Cardell. She, her in Colorado had a meeting for Corey Gardner, one of their representatives, and he didn't show up. So they put a chair and made a fake him, and you see there Barb interviewing the chair. That got a lot of media attention. So that actually was a brilliant way. That was probably, Barb was probably just being silly in the beginning, but her interview in that chair actually brought a lot of attention to their issue. So that was a really great tactic. It might have been a tactic she had anyway, because she's brilliant, but this is a great tactic. If they don't show up or they don't want to engage with you, there are things that you can do in order to bring attention. Because a lot of times when we are organizing and we're trying to organize with politicians, they run from us. So you have to think of unique tactics in order to get them to pay attention to you, or get them to understand that you're not going to go away. This was a great media grab because that picture is epic. I've done this before with the issue I was organizing around, where there was a legislator. My legislator kept ignoring me. I would go to the Capitol. I would stand there, get tickets for them to come get him. He would never come out. Try to go to his office. He would never come out. One time he even ran and jumped on the elevator. It was like, I don't have time. So I had a meeting with my group, and somebody was like, I know where his mother goes to church. And I was like, you know what? Really? It's like, his mother is really passionate about this issue. So I went to his mother's church and I sat next to her and I sparked up a conversation. And the next day he did it. He voted on the bill. He called me, really. That's what he did the next day. He called me. He's like, Miss Turk, I heard I've been ignoring you. But it paid off in the end. So sometimes you have to do really interesting tactics in order to get attention to your issue. Next slide. So, I kind of jumped ahead of myself. Define your goals. Conduct a meeting with fellow advocates. Determine your meeting goals. Create an agenda to meet those goals. And your agenda should include the definition of the issue, the explanation of its importance, the connection to a real life personal story. So somebody should definitely be there to tell the story. And specific action you want your elected official to take. That's what we call an axe. You always want to have an axe. You never want to go into an office or talk about an issue without a solution or asking them to do something. So you define your goals, make sure you explain the importance of it, tell a real personal story, which you guys learned about last webinar, how to message, and then make your acts. That's always the most important part of a meeting is your acts. Next slide. Roles. This is how you this is what I call it, preventing from talking over each other. You determine who's gonna say what so you guys don't be interrupting or trying to talk over. So in your planning meeting, you decide who's responsible for what, who will facilitate the meeting, who will cover what topic, who will take notes and information requests. And now with social media, some people decide who's going to take pictures or who's going to record. Of course, you always ask permission first, but a lot of times you need somebody to take pictures, record, or videotape. Some people videotape as well. So you determine those roles to make sure everybody has a role and everybody know what they're going to do and what they're going to say. Next slide. Do your homework. Research your elected official's stance on the issue. See if they have a personal connection. That's what I did with my legislative's mother. She had a personal connection to education, and I knew, and it was about comprehensive sex education. So that's why she became my target. So see if they have a personal connection. Be prepared, know your facts, the statistics, research findings, bring talking points and fact sheets. It's really important to always make sure you have talking points, and it's really good to always have fact sheets prepared because a lot of times the legislators don't know they don't know facts about the issue. So if you can leave some with them, that would help. And remember, supportive legislators need to hear from their constituents. Supportive and unsupportive ones, I believe. But yes, a lot of times I've heard people say before, well, that legislator is friendly. That legislator knows about the issue. We don't have to go see him. But you do. You always have to let them know that you're there, that what's going on in the community. And even if you're just going to say thank you, we appreciate your support, do that. But a lot of times you also want to let them know about the new issues and see if they know and give some education on that as well. So they always need to hear from you. Next slide. Hold the meeting. So you've requested the meeting, you've planned. Now you need to hold the meeting. So you always want to arrive early, never late. So prepare to be there early. So what I do is for those people who I know that show up to meetings late, I tell them an earlier time so they can show up on time. Each advocate should introduce themselves. They should say the name, that they are constituent if they're from their district, and any organization affiliation that they have. Present the issue clearly. Stay on message. If the conversation veers, bring it back quickly. That's another role you can assign. A person who knows how to redirect a conversation is invaluable at meetings. So if you know that person on your team that is really good at redirecting a conversation, let them know that's your job, because a lot of times we can get thrown off about talking about a game, or people love to talk about sports, and that take up, you only have 15 minutes in your meeting, you don't want to take up 10 of it talking about the sports team and what they did. So make sure you have somebody that can redirect your conversation. And then make your acts. Wait and listen for a response. Awkward silence is okay. Let it happen. Let them respond. Don't take up the space for them, because they would love sometimes for you to gloss over it. So make your acts and wait. It's okay for it to be quiet in the room until they respond. Get the contact information of the person with whom you are meeting, because a lot of times you will meet with their legislative aides or the people who deals directly with the issues that you're talking about. So you want to make sure you always get a card or get their information so you can follow up with them. Thank them for their time and attention. Next slide.
Can I make a comment on this, Evany?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like Evany is like laid the best outline out for having these meetings with legislators, whether it's your city council member or like with the city council, or your elected official at the state level. This is like a phenomenal model to follow, and it's applicable in the virtual world, right? Like I know I live in Virginia, and our house, there's two legislative chambers, right? There's the Senate and the House. Sometimes they have wonky names, but typically Senate and House. The Senate is meeting in person, but the House is meeting exclusively virtual. And any lobbying or meetings with legislators is also happening like entirely virtually. There's no in-person session really in Virginia. And so we've been working at PWN with, ECHO, VA, Equality Virginia, and the Zero Project on an HIV modernization bill. And we've had to meet with our legislators, either our bill sponsors or other members of the House and Senate virtually. And let me tell you, these rules still apply. Like if you have a 30-minute Zoom meeting with an elected official, sign into it 20 minutes, 30 minutes early, so all of you are on the same page. You know what you're going to ask, you know who is going to talk in what order, and you have that ability to like moderate the conversation, like come in with a plan. The awkward silence on Zoom is so awkward, right? Like I feel like it's more awkward than in person, but it's necessary because Evany's right. Like legislators will sometimes find a way to not commit to you or answer your ask, right? And so be silent, make them meet you where you're at. But yeah, I wanted to really quickly bring that up because I know a lot of us are living through this pandemic, and that is really impacting how we're able to organize. And we're going to go over digital organizing in a bit. But I wanted to at least highlight that this amazing framework does apply even in virtual settings. So definitely paste this into your mind. And if you're doing any ledge work right now and engaging with your legislators virtually, this still applies.
Thanks, Breanna. And that is absolutely true. All of these things can be transferred virtually. We're going to also talk about some digital stuff, but absolutely. Thank you. Next slide. So follow up and be a resource. Send an email immediately after your meeting with the legislator underscoring your act. So you're re-axing and any agreed upon next steps, because in the meeting, hopefully, if it's a great meeting, you'll have next steps. And sometimes it's you sending them information or somebody sending them information, additional information, but you always want to follow up with the email, letting them know, thanking them again for their time, letting them know about, restating your acts and any agreed upon next steps. As a representative of your community, you're a unique resource to elected officials. So many of us, I feel like for so long, I didn't understand or realize that I always was wondering, how can I be a resource to elected officials, until I started meeting with them and learned that they really don't know a lot about what happens in the community on the grassroots level. They know the big, broad things sometimes. And sometimes they don't even know about that. They be like, what? That really happened? Oh, I need to look into that. So it taught me that a lot of times they don't know what we're going through or what we're dealing with because it hasn't been brought to them. So many times I've met with legislators and they said, I've never met an HIV positive constituent in my life. And I know it's thousands of them in their district, but nobody has ever come to them with any issues. So you are a unique resource in for your elected official, which is why I want y'all to email them and introduce yourselves because they need to know that you're there. Continue to reach out on policy issues you raised and add your official to your organization's mailing list so they can start, if you work in an organization, they can start getting all of the emails and know what's going on in your organization. All of those things are really important. And you know, just make sure to remember you are a unique and special and important resource for them. Next slide. So we're going to go into digital organizing a little bit because we are in the age of digital organizing is important regardless because we are all over the internet these days. I have turned the coin. I will see you in these internet streets because we are so much on the internet these days, more than in person. That is really important to know about digital organizing. So, digital organizing is utilizing social media and other online platforms to organize in your community. This gives us the ability to foster offline relationships in mass by leveraging online platforms and tools like the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagram, the social medias. That's what I call it. So, next slide. Why digital organizing? Look at all these beautiful faces. Organize, you can organize safely from home, for one. Right now, we're in the COVID. We are in a pandemic and we can't be in groups of 10 or more. So you can organize safely from home where you can make meetings happen where people don't have to leave your home. And I'll also say that I think this is a way for us to organize with people who are in places that don't have the best transportation systems. They can't get out of their homes for whatever reason. People with disabilities who it's not easy for them to leave their homes, physical disabilities where it's not easy for them to leave their homes, people who don't have money to get Ubers and get on bus. This is a way for us to organize with people we really don't organize with when we organize in person. So digital organizing should always, in my opinion, if it can, be an option, even to an in-person meeting. It allows more people to get involved in campaigns, projects that may otherwise be inaccessible. Oh, that's what I just talked about. I'm sorry. Leverage personal networks and easily encourage friends and family to leverage their networks. So while you're, online advertising, a lot of times, your friends and family who don't really know what you be doing can find out what you be doing because you are now organizing online. So, and it allows you to mobilize people quickly because, in this day and age, most people are on some form of social media. Most people are spending at least a few hours a day on some form of social media. So it can help you mobilize quickly. Next slide.
I was gonna point out, like, I know, like, when we talk about digital organizing and using social media, like, all of us are already doing it, right? Like, I'm thinking of like when we ask, like when PWN sends out to our listserv or posts on our Facebook or our Twitter, like, hi members, so, like, take this action alert now. Like, tell your member of Congress that, like, not to support this horrible bill, right? Like, that is digital organizing. So I just wanted to highlight that to be like, it's like digital organizing is happening at all times, whether you recognize it or not. And it's like, as Evany already put, it's much more accessible. You're able to mobilize a lot of people within your personal networks, right? To mobilize quickly on a fast moving issue. Like, we know state-led work is really fast, like really, really quick. You have to make decisions on like the last minute at like midnight, and digital organizing is a great tool to really quickly, rapidly respond to developing issues. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that like all of us are like, you've already done digital organizing, whether you knew it or not.
Before you move to the next slide, let me also say we have this screenshot of a StreamYard up here, but digital organizing also happens on your phone. All those texts that you got last year that was driving all of us crazy. That is digital organizing. A lot of times people get these move on forms to sign. That is digital organizing. Texting, all of that, digital organizing. The phone calls, digital organizing. So yes, you have participated, whether you knew it or not, in digital organizing. Next slide. Oh, okay. So we will now hear from the lovely, I didn't even put her name. Oh, Lord. Deirdre Johnson, around how she has organized on the ground. And she has recently did some digital organizing. So Deirdre, are you here?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Deirdre is the Positive Women's Network Virginia State lead, and she is the co-founder of Echo VA. Tell us about your work, Deirdre.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited. Although I can't technically see your faces, but I see your faces in my brain. So I know I can see your names, and I know you're here. So, to be honest, the first step, literally gonna jump right into it. The first step is doing what you're doing right now. And to be honest, how we started, especially myself in Virginia, how I started was coming to Zooms. Well, they were in person, but coming on meetings. And if anything, if you have not gotten a chance to look at PWN's website, and they have videos on there, all kinds of things. I've been doing advocacy work for 20 years. And it literally started the moment that I found out that I was HIV positive 20 years ago, because I was pregnant. So I had to make sure that everything, all of my ducks were in a row so that I can make sure that this unborn child was born without HIV. And that was just something that I was really dedicated to. So to find out, number one, that I had to learn a lot. So that's why I say getting on these types of Zooms, information, finding out research, because Evany so eloquently stated, you need to make sure you're doing your research even before you do your research. And that means, well, how do I start and where do I start? And of course, PWN has an amazing situation that they have set up. If you haven't already, I think we're already there, but on the policy fellowship, if you haven't done it, okay, I'm definitely doing too many plugs for PWN. But when I say that it works, it works. And it's going to be whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out. So how my whole organizing started was literally coming to the Positive Women's Network Summit. And in their summit, you can go to the next slide, Evany, or anyone, whenever you're ready. I think, yeah. So what we kind of did, that's me too still, right? That's still my, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm telling you, go to the next slide, and that ain't even, my bad. Look at me, loud and wrong. See, do your research. Going to the PWN Summit, for real, the Speak Up Summit in 2018, and finding out more because I have been doing advocacy work and just kind of doing speaking and awareness, prevention, and education, really. And I wanted to do more because I recognize that, number one, just some of the policies that were happening on the ground were some injustice were happening there. And then, of course, found out later this wonderful, lovely lady passed a note to me at the table while I was there, Tammy Hott from the Zero Project, and was like, "Hey, we're doing some work in Virginia, and we'd like to see you at HIV is Not a Crime." And again, doing research, learned how what organizing is. Again, thank you, PWN, for all of these wonderful things to participate in, because you had to learn what is it, and that's what we did. Is I really took, we really took time, about a year and a year and a half, to do some research, and then at the same time, some of the stuff kind of happened all at the same time. So everything that you have seen in the previous slides, when I say take a mental picture, take your snapshots, review, and keep things on cards, these are things that you're going to have to remember at all times because it is going to be extremely helpful. If you're not a talker, again, it's okay, because as long as you are prepared, which again, going back to doing your research, you have your talking points, you know exactly what your group has said, this is what the problem is, this is why we see this as a problem, and here are our ask. If you can start to memorize and have that on your conscious, always have a note, then you're always going to be in line, in alignment with everybody that's on your organizing team. Again, you don't have to be 50 members strong. You can be what, like in Virginia, we have a coalition now. I believe we're up to 30, but we started with about I think we started with 15 at our first, 15 to 20, and so we're still growing. So know that at the end of the day, you might start with one or two, and it's going to continue to grow because people are going to be passionate about what you're passionate about. And that all comes into what are you passionate about. PWN gives a really great framework. You have 6 beautiful topics to look into that may or may not affect you or your community, but whatever reaches to your spirit, pick it and go for it. And what you will find out is that there are intersections, and you're going to be working into all of ours, because like for mine, it was HIV criminalization. And guess what else comes up? Racial justice. So now it's a framework that now you're working, might seem like you're only like in a silo with one, but you could be working on a couple of things at one time. But research, attend all of these meetings. Don't think that sending an email is like the smallest thing that you're doing and like it's insignificant. It's major. Everything that you do is major. Showing up, even if you don't say a word, is major. Sending that email to a friend on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, is major, because the more people are hearing and you're keeping your topic relevant, whatever you're organizing around, then it's going to be relevant for the people that want to work with you and want to also see whatever you're working on succeed. So those are kind of like the kind of, I think I did it justice, seriously, in saying, don't think, one, that what you're doing is insignificant. It is not. It is major. Showing up today, major. High five, pat yourself on the back. Always showing up to this stuff, and not even, all over. People are having stuff. We are in a digital age that you can probably be 5 places in once and literally be in 5 different time zones with 50 different people. And so please take advantage of that, and also use your social medias, all of those things, to be able to reach folks that you want to help organize with you. Reach out to people that you might not even want to reach out to, even the folks that's going to fuss and cuss at you possibly, but reach out to them, because they're going to give you a perspective, and hey, there again might be some things in common that you might be able to work together to be able to organize in some fronts. And then you part ways, not necessarily when the job is done, but when you're focused on a particular subject and topic that's helping you both be fruitful, yes. And then whatever your opposite things be, then, but we always respect everyone, always be respectful, and always know that whatever you're doing is great. It's going to be great. And it might not take 5 minutes, but every second that you spend on it is very, 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 very valuable. So
Deidre,
I
tell
think,
them about what you guys just did.
oh, I know, goodness. I hope Vernita's not on here because Vernita would get me so bad. So what we did, we actually organized in Virginia to do criminalization work, more specifically HIV criminalization work. And what we did was we originally came in, like I said, it went to the Positive Women Summit, then it went to the HIV is not a crime. So when in person and all of these conferences happen, be there, because you learn so much and you meet so much, and that's when you get to network with other people in your state and out of your state, and sometimes even out of the country, for real. And you get to learn different things, and then from there we myself and Cedric Pulliam we founded a coalition, and we organized members in our state that were living with HIV, coalitions and organizations that were working and helping people living with HIV, as well as individuals from various parts of our community across our state. And then from there, we ended up, long story short, we changed the law. We kind of we kind of changed the law. To keep it simple, we changed the law. It's infectious sexual battery. What we did was we took out disclosure. So in actually first, we actually broadened the scope so that HIV, hepatitis B, and syphilis are no longer just specific in our laws, and we broadened it to infectious sexual battery laws. And then we also took out, we repealed disclosure. So you no longer have to disclose your HIV status in Virginia without penalty. It was a misdemeanor, class 1 misdemeanor, so that no longer applies. For the donation of blood products, organs, and tissues, if you're HIV positive, you can now do that without penalty, because at a point, I believe that was a class 6 felony, and correct me if I'm wrong, Breanna, but I believe that was to happen. So we did that. That no longer applies. And then if you are criminalized or charged or convicted with any drug use, drug paraphernalia, anything drug related and or sex work, it used to be where you were mandated to do HIV testing, which of course stigmatizes and does a whole lot of other stuff as well. Discriminates as well against people living with HIV. Used to be mandated. It is no longer a mandate. It is optional. And so the only good and bad parts, it's like, yeah, to this was, again, working through this process takes a long time, a short time, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, and we had to make some hard decisions. And that decision was to broaden the scope for intent. So you can be charged with intent if transmission occurs for any sexually transmitted disease, and that would be, infection, and that would be a class 6 felony. But our hope and prayer with the cosmos is maybe it will magically, deliciously disappear and be a misdemeanor, is what we're hoping that the cosmos will deliver for us in the next few weeks. So that's what this lovely group of folks here, as you see, that was one of the initial, and we're so excited because in there we have Tammy Hop from the Zero Project, and we have this lovely Carrie Perry, that's how I always like to say her name, from Colorado, who came in and actually did our strategic planning. And of course, we have several members from PWN, as well as we actually have our NASDAQ representative and one of the heads of Virginia Department of Health also represented in this picture.
Yeah, so this picture, we went back to it because I didn't even realize this is the picture of Echo VA, Virginia, their coalition that they created. And I am so, I've been so proud of Deirdre, because I remember the first time I met Deirdre, she was giving Wahida a hard time about getting into lunch. And it was so funny because she took her job so seriously about making sure everybody had an ID to get in lunch. And she told Wahida, you need an ID. And Wahida was like, okay. But everybody was so impressed with Deirdre because she just was doing her job. She didn't know who Wahida was. But from that, that experience of meeting her at the summit, and then seeing how she has grown, and now she done help change a bill in her state. Like, that is amazing. That is amazing organizing. And thank you so much for everything you've done, and everything you do, because she does way more than that. While she's changing the bill, she's listening, she's getting calls from me about all types of other stuff too. So
Keep coming. And you know what? I actually want to highlight, there's one other person in this picture that I don't even know, Breanna, if you've even heard this, but the young lady on the end, Monica Charleston, has actually been very responsible in sex work expungements for anyone who has been trafficked in any way and have been charged with any sex crimes or sex work crimes, then you can actually have those expunged in Virginia. So that is also a bill that Virginia PWN can actually throw on their bucket list, which is a win for ECHO as well, because not only did we work on HIV criminalization this session, but we also worked on over incarceration, because that will also now expunge a lot of things that people shouldn't have been charged with in the beginning. So, and keep folks out of incarceration and justice involved. So we're super excited about our members. And even we have another one, Pablo, there at the front, in the towards the front there, is working on changing the sex education laws and things, and how that's being presented in Virginia schools. So amazing group of people on our coalition, and a cousin of George Floyd as well. I might actually toot our horn on that one too.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Deidre. I appreciate your work and everybody's work. I love Monica too. She has done great, great, great work. But thank you.
Y'all
So
for having.
you
Thank
are
you for
welcome. Stick around. So all of these things that you've heard, we actually have a how to advocate guide for people living with HIV. We have a 5-part advocacy guide on our website. They're going to drop some links in the chat box if you guys want to grab them. 5-part advocacy guide around how to advocate, policy 101, advocacy, building campaigns, messaging, DIY starter kit. We use these things, and right now we are advocating and organizing in our legislature, and we use this guide in our advocacy. So it is actually a guide that you can use. It is actually something that will help you step by step. And of course, you can always call on us. Next slide. So we have a few announcements before we end. Let me stop to see if we have questions though. Any questions? I don't see any in the chat box. Okay, so until at least somebody say we have some, I will keep moving. A few announcements. We have a Southern Women Advocacy Response Mobilization group, which we call SWARM. SWARM is to provide advocates living in, working in, and or focused on the South with a monthly space to learn, discuss, collaborate, organize, mobilize around issues important to the HIV community. It's a virtual meeting. It happens every fourth Monday at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. If you're interested, the link will be in the comments. Next slide. Texas Strikeforce. This is what I was just telling you guys about us organizing in Texas. We organize with the Texas Strikeforce, which is a statewide cross movement of individuals and organizations ready to take action on behalf of marginalized communities to change the face of politics in Texas. This strike force actually monitors bills in the legislature. We act on bills. We've been really busy because our legislature only convenes for 140 days. So when we get in there, we have to strike while it's hot. That's why it's called the strike force. Anybody here from Texas, there will be a town hall on the ADAP issue because we're having a budget issue which affects ADAP here. So that town hall will happen, and I believe there will be a link to that drops about that. If not, please contact me. Oh, the Strikeforce, the link for the Strikeforce will be in the comments, which is where you can find out about the information about the town hall. So if you are a Texan, please sign up for the Strikeforce, because we send great information over our listserv if you sign up for the Strikeforce. Next slide. Oh, there's a bunch of resources and links that hopefully I think are in the chat, but we will, I think we sent out the slides and you guys can get all of the links. There will be okay. Celebrate and honor Black women. That's another announcement. That's another program we are doing. You guys know this is International Women's Month. Next week is National Women and Girls HIV Awareness Day. For that, we are instituting a day on March 12th. We are instituting an awareness day on March 12th around celebrate and honor Black women. March 12th, we'll have a town hall to talk about the different issues. We'll have some entertainment. It's going to be a great time, so I hope you all join. You can also still sign up to participate or celebrate and support Celebrate and Honor Black Women in the HIV Movement Day, because there will be links there as well. So join PWN and other Black leaders in the HIV movement for a discussion about what it means to honor, celebrate, protect, respect, and pay Black women, as well as come and be entertained. I hope to see you guys there. And lastly, there will be a link to an evaluation for this webinar in the chat. Please take the evaluation. We need to know these things, and we need you to evaluate us, so we'll know how we're doing. We'll know how to better serve you, better bring things to you. So please click and take the evaluation before we leave. Are there any other questions in the chat? Breanna, are we good? And if you have questions or concerns or you need help, here's our emails. Please reach out and email us. We really mean it. We'll help you. We know organizing is not always the easiest thing to do, but we're here to help and support you, and we really mean it. So please reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can do a dump of all the links that to events that Evany discussed, as well as resources and the evaluation. We will send out a follow-up email, though, with these links. So please feel free, if you would like to drop off, we will get this to you in an email, but I will stop sharing my screen now to at least put it in the chat. But really, thank you so much for joining this webinar series. We hope that it has been helpful for y'all to better understand like the importance of legislative advocacy, how to do it, how to message, and how to mobilize. Thank you so much. Please, please, please let us know how we can help build your work, your advocacy work in your respective state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.